I've always believed that every single one of us deserves to work for an organization where we genuinely want, not need, to show up to work each day. And that the leaders of those organizations actually care about the people who work there and are invested in their success both in the office and outside of it. And when I imagine what the future of work can look like, that's what I think of. And everything I do, every person I meet, and every event that I speak at, all of it, is to spread that message and to help us create a future that we are all proud to be a part of. And of course, I want to have a little bit of fun along the journey. I was cheated, lied to, betrayed. All of this happened within just 6 months of being in a relationship. Naturally, I did what any rational person would do, and I decided it was time to end the relationship. So I waited until the right moment, I planned, and finally, I handed in my resignation letter. Now, I'm not special. There are millions of people around the world every single day who feel this way about the managers and the organizations that they work for. My first job out of college, the one where I felt so lied and betrayed to, during the interview process, I was told that I would be meeting with executives and entrepreneurs, traveling across the country, and doing all sorts of meaningful and impactful work. A couple months into my job, I'm stuck doing data entry, cold calling, PowerPoint presentations. Combine that with a 3-hour daily commute in bumper-to-bumper Los Angeles traffic. That was my life. And I'll never forget this. One day, the CEO comes out of his beautiful corner office and he says, "Jacob, come over here. I have something really important for you." I got excited. I thought, this is it. This is the moment. Something amazing is going to happen. And so I run over to him and I say, "Yes, what is it?" And he puts his hand into his pocket and he takes out his wallet. And from his wallet, he gives me a crisp, clean $10 bill, slaps it right in my hand, and says, "I'm late for a meeting. I need you to go to Starbucks and get me a cup of coffee. And get something for yourself as well." What, are you out of your damn mind? This is why I worked so hard in school, is to get you a cup of coffee? Get your own stupid cup of coffee. That's what I thought on the inside. On the outside, I said, "Of course, I would love to get you that cup of coffee. Of course, I'm dreaming of getting you coffee." And that was one of the last full-time jobs I've had working for anybody else, and that was around 10 years ago. And the entire purpose of a lighthouse is always to guide people to safety, to help them find their way back home, and to help make sure that they stay away from rocks or cliffs that might crush their ships. And when I was thinking about this concept of the future leader, I very much thought of this idea of a lighthouse, because I think leaders now, and especially in the future, have to be lighthouses. I mean, all of you in this room, your job is to guide people and organizations to success, to help make sure that they stay away from the rocks, to help make sure that they don't crash into the cliffs, and to help make sure that they and the organization as a whole can succeed. But in order to do that, you also have to build yourselves up, right? You have to become that lighthouse. You have to learn new things. You have to evolve and adapt so that you can in turn shine your light onto others and onto this sea of uncertainty that we are all a part of. Will the leader of 2030 be that different than the leader of today? And if so, how? So here's what I uncovered from interviewing all these CEOs. They all believe that some core skills, some core things will remain the same, as I mentioned. Being able to create a vision, execute on strategic direction. But we will also need a new set of skills and mindsets. Why do we need a new set of skills and mindsets? Because we're seeing things that are disrupting our organizations. Technology, pace of change, automation, artificial intelligence, purpose and meaning and impact, transparency, authentic leadership, The very nature of talent and what it looks like, what they expect, all these things are changing. And because these things are changing, it means our companies are going to change. And if our companies are going to change, then we need a new type of leader who can take and guide these organizations forward. So I call this the Notable 9. These are the 4 mindsets and the 5 skills that the world's 140 top CEOs identified as being essential for the future leader. Now, these are, of course, important now, but over the next 10 years, they believe that this is going to be like air and water. And if you don't possess these, you will not be able to lead effectively. We have all at some point in our lives worked for an organization where we didn't like our job. And we quit, and we went to go work for another organization. And that other organization is in the same industry, it's the same company size, it's in the same geographic location, and we're doing the same type of work. But now, all of a sudden, we love our job. What changed? It's not the work that you're doing, it's the environment in which the work is getting done. It's the culture, it's the technology, it's the physical space. Organizations that can design for those 3 things and build for those 3 things are going to get the organizations where people actually want, not need, to show up to work. Pretend for a minute that you were in a relationship with somebody only because they gave you nice things. What happens when one day they don't give you nice things anymore? You leave, and the same thing is happening inside of companies. We're so obsessed with giving employees perks and shiny new objects all the time that when we can't do it anymore, employees start to leave. So instead, what we need to do is to create an environment where employees actually want to show up. So if employee engagement is the short-term adrenaline shot, employee experience is the long-term change focusing on the core workplace practices of your company. Organizations always say, we want to empower our people. Everybody always says, we want to empower our employees. But on the first day, employees are already empowered, right? They are already empowered when they show up. And what happens is through outdated ways of working, we disempower them. And we make them less satisfied with work. And then when they get down here, we think, oh, now how do we empower them? It doesn't make any sense. So instead of trying to simply empower your people, it's also important to think about how you can stop disempowering them to begin with. With great power comes great responsibility. But I think the opposite is true. With great responsibility comes great power. And so if you become more responsible, more active, more of a driving force in what you want the future of work to look like, you will have more power. So if you want to future-proof your life, you want to future-proof your career, your organization, I encourage you to think about, what do you want the future of work to look like, and how are you going to make that future happen? I estimate that by 2030, we're going to have between 88 million and 440 million leaders around the world. That is, people who are responsible for others. If you kind of want to go somewhere in the middle, we're looking at around 200 million leaders around the world by the year 2030. That is a lot of people. If we're going to have hundreds of millions of people in leadership roles where their job is to shape society, to shape the world, to shape cultures and values, then we better make sure that we have the right people in place. You know, there used to be a time when you could smoke in the office. There used to be a time when you could work 9 to 5. And there used to be a time when if your organization had a job that it wanted to fill, it would put up the posting and people would line up wanting to take that job. And one by one, these employees would try to convince you why they should work for you. They would talk about all their skills, all their accomplishments, the wonderful schools that they went to, and they would try so hard to convince you why you should hire them. Now look at the world that we live in today. You don't smoke in the office. This idea of working 9 to 5 has largely been replaced by work-life integration. And today, when you have a job you want to fill, and when candidates come through your door and you say, "This is our company," all of a sudden now they're asking you questions. What is it like to work here? Am I going to feel a sense of purpose? What are the values of the organization? What's the managerial style like? What tools am I going to be using? And so what we're starting to see is now it's you that are trying to convince the employees why they should work for you. And that's a very, very different way for us to think about work. You have to convince employees why they should work for you. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody, or you probably have said this yourself, maybe you're exchanging emails, maybe you're on the phone, maybe it's even in person. You ask somebody, "Hey, how's it going?" And they say, "I'm so heads down." You probably even said, "I'm so heads down. I'm just laser focused on what's right in front of me." But unfortunately today, it's not good enough to be heads down. You gotta be heads up, heads side to side, heads all around you. So being a super perpetual learner, paying attention to the tangential, means being aware of how your skills and your abilities can be applied to other things, not just the one thing that you're doing now. Skills are greater than jobs. Skills are more valuable than jobs. So focus on the skills that you have and where those skills can be applied.
Now, how many of you have kids? When your child does something that you couldn't do, or when they do something better than you don't look at your child and say, "Ah, how dare you? How dare you do that better than me? I'm your creator." Push him over. You don't do that, I hope. Maybe. You don't. You look at them with a sense of pride and accomplishment and you say, "Oh my God, that's amazing, that's great. I raised you, I taught you, and now look at, you're doing things better than even I could do." How come inside of our companies, when other people get promoted and they become more successful than us, how come we can't do that same thing? We have this big habit inside of our companies around the world where we take people who bring in the most money, people who close the biggest deals, and then we promote them as a way to say thank you. And we promote them and then we give them the responsibility of managing others. And then we try to give them soft skill training. Right? We try to give them leadership training. And that never works, does it? What if instead we took the people inside of our organizations that were good at engaging and empowering and inspiring others, the people that were good at the soft skills, and then we promoted them, and then we give them management training. We teach them how to manage a P&L. We teach them how to delegate. That would be a very different type of an organization. You have to put people in positions of power who genuinely care about others. So what does that mean? A manager should be somebody who believes that their role, their job is to help make other people more successful than they are. What do you think that kind of a company would look like? What if we rewarded those types of people? What if we said, if you help make other people more successful than you and you help other people succeed in this kind of a company, that's what we're going to reward you for. Not for closing the biggest deal, not for bringing in the most money, but by helping make other people more successful at work. That would be a very different type of an organization, wouldn't it?
You have some leaders who everybody wants to work for. Everybody wants to be on that leader's team. They look up to them, they admire them. But in that same company, you also have leaders who everybody hates. People are scared of them, they don't want to work for them, they want to transfer away from them. So in one company, how is it that you can have a leader that everybody loves and admires and respects, but you also have a leader that somebody hates and wants to get away from? Both those people got promoted. How? Why? It's because the people who promoted them have different filters. The filters that you have inside of your company will dictate the type of leaders that get promoted. So to set up what those filters are, you need to define leadership and who a leader actually is.